This happened last year. I moved to a small town for a new job. I was 32, a graphic designer, and tired of boring jobs in the city. The town looked charming with its local shops and old buildings. I found a cute apartment above a cafe that smelled like fresh coffee all day. But soon I learned my new home had a strange history. Previous tenants didn't just leave, they vanished in the night. They left furniture and clothes behind like they'd run off but forgotten something important. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. At first, everything felt fine. I settled into my routine and explored the town. One night, while I was working late, I saw my neighbor. He was a retired man painting a mural on his wall. I thought it was a hobby, but the scenes looked dark. They showed things I didn't want to see. I sensed a hidden story behind his art. Days passed, and that's when I started to hear odd sounds. They came at night, like something grinding. It pulled me from sleep. The retired man was nice enough. He invited me for coffee now and then. But every time I mentioned his mural, he'd change the subject. His smile never reached his eyes. His house felt strange. I began to see shadows through his window that vanished when I tried to look closer. I'd lie in bed with my heart racing and my palms clammy. The nights were filled with whispers. I wondered if I was imagining it, or if the walls had something to say. Maybe I just needed more sleep. But I couldn't shake that feeling something was watching me. Tension filled my chest whenever I thought about that mural. It felt alive, like it had secrets to tell. Last week I decided to confront him. I needed answers. I walked to his door, but my hands trembled. I couldn't knock. Instead, I turned back and went home. I thought about the previous tenants. Did they know something I didn't? Why did they leave everything behind? As I write this, I feel the weight of my curiosity. The sounds still creep in every night. I can't help but think that mural has a message just for me. I spent my last night staring at the wall when I saw him through the window. I asked if he was okay, but when I looked closer, nobody was there. I felt a chill run down my spine and my heart raced again. The air felt thick. Something was wrong. I still hear whispers in the night, drawing me closer to the truth. All the previous tenants vanished, and I can't help but wonder if I'm next. I don't know what I'll do. I'm scared, but I can't ignore this anymore. What happened to them? I guess I'm about to find out. The following morning I woke up later than usual. The sunlight poured into my bedroom, but it did little to warm the chill in my bones. I felt restless. Curiosity coiled tightly within me, urging me to dig deeper. I couldn't go on wondering about the past tenants or the mural anymore. I had to find answers. I got dressed and headed out. I noticed a small library in town. It was the kind of place that could whisper the secrets of the past. I stepped inside, the scent of old paper and polished wood enveloping me. The librarian, a gray-haired woman with thin glasses, looked at me with a knowing gaze. "Can I help you?" she asked kindly. I hesitated, unsure where to start. "I'm looking for information about old tenants in my apartment building. Something strange happened to them." The words felt heavy. Her expression shifted slightly. "Ah, yes. People don't stay long in that building. It has a reputation. Do you know why?" I leaned closer, desperate for more. "They say it's haunted." She lowered her voice, glancing around. Something about a dark past connected to that street. I felt a knot in my stomach. "Can I find out more?" She nodded and led me to a section filled with old newspapers. As I flipped through the brittle pages, my heart quickened. I found articles about past residents. Some wrote about odd occurrences. Others just vanished. They left everything behind, like echoes in the walls. I had my answer but wanted more details. That's when I noticed a name. It was the last tenant mentioned. He had vanished without a trace, but his name had been reported in a police log. I scribbled it down, hoping to piece together the mystery. As I left the library, I felt the eyes of the townsfolk on me. Their glances were heavy with suspicion. I quickened my pace. Did they know something? Why were they watching me? That night, I tried to ignore the urgent need to investigate further. I poured myself a glass of wine and turned on my laptop. The shadows seemed to stretch longer, and the whispers grew louder. I couldn't focus on anything but the mural. The twisted scenes haunted me, calling me back. Then, it happened. As I stood staring at the mural, fixated on a dark figure within it, I felt a cold breath on the back of my neck. I turned abruptly and saw him, the retired man, standing in my living room. "Why are you here?" I gasped, panic flooding through me. He looked different. His eyes were void, endless pits. "You shouldn't have looked into the past," he said softly. Confusion washed over me. "What do you mean?" He stepped forward, and for a fleeting second I saw the figure from the mural behind him, looming, almost alive. Everything went dark. In that darkness I felt trapped. My heartbeat thundered in my ears and an icy dread settled deep in my chest. I realized I was caught in a web of secrets that threatened to swallow me whole. What had I awakened? I blinked, and suddenly, light flooded back. But the old man was gone. Only the shadows remained, thick and swirling with new whispers. I knew, more than ever, that my search for answers had unearthed something dangerous. Was this my end too? I struggled to shake the vision of the old man from my mind. His hollow eyes and the weight of his warning haunted me. I needed clarity. Instead, I felt more lost than ever. Was he a ghost? A mere figment of my overactive imagination? Or was it something more sinister? The next morning, I decided to confront my fears. I grabbed my notebook and the name I had taken from the library, Daniel Klein. I needed to find out more about him. My gut told me he was the key to everything. I returned to the library, searching through the same dusty archives. The librarian was gone, replaced by a younger man who barely looked up from his desk. I felt invisible as I roamed the aisles searching for any reference to Daniel. After an hour of scanning articles and records, I struck gold. There was a brief report detailing a missing persons case from 2 years ago. It outlined the circumstances of his disappearance, strange noises reported by neighbors, odd behavior before he vanished, and a sketch of the mural that adorned my wall. Each word added weight to my growing dread. That's when I saw it. The full account of his last known location. Daniel had last been seen near the old chapel at the end of our street. I felt my pulse quicken. A place tied to the town's dark history. I had to go there. As I stepped out, the air felt charged. The sun was low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the town. My thoughts raced. What might I find at the chapel? What had happened to Daniel? Approaching the chapel, I felt a chill sweep through the hairs on my arms. The door creaked open, almost inviting me in. Inside, shadows danced against the stone walls. I took a shaky breath and stepped inside, the scent of damp earth enveloping me. I moved cautiously, the wooden floor creaking beneath my feet. I noticed the stained glass windows casting colored light onto the floor, illuminating the dust motes floating in the air. My heart raced as I moved deeper into the chapel. That's when I saw it. The mural, larger than life, consuming an entire wall. The same twisted scenes I had in my apartment stared back at me. They seemed to pulse, alive in a terrible way. Embedded within the layers of paint was the unmistakable face of Daniel Klein, transmitted into the strokes of the artwork, his mouth frozen in a silent scream. Suddenly the air thickened and the shadows shifted. I could hear whispers, echoing in a language I didn't understand. They seemed to swirl around me, wrapping me in a cocoon of terror. I stepped back, my breath hitching. Then, I felt a hand on my shoulder, cold and firm. I spun around, expecting to find an intruder. Instead, it was a woman, a spectral figure with hollow eyes like the old man. "You shouldn't have come here," she whispered, a warning tinged with sorrow. Before I could respond, darkness seemed to crash around me again. The walls closed in, and the chapel twisted. The mural loomed over me, alive with a wicked pulse. It was clear I had crossed a line. What other secrets lay buried in the hearts of those who had come before? And was Daniel Klein truly gone? Or was there something darker waiting for me to discover? I stumbled back, colliding with the cold stone wall of the chapel. The figure of the woman faded into mist before my eyes, but her words lingered like a chilling breeze. Panic surged through me. I needed to get out, to breathe, to make sense of this chaos. I turned and rushed back towards the entrance, but the murmur of the whispers grew louder, clawing at my sanity. Each word felt like a thread pulling me further into the chapel's grasp. I could feel my heart racing, pounding against my chest. The shadows followed me, taunting until I burst through the door into the fading daylight. Outside, the world outside seemed almost normal. Cars rolled by and birds chirped. The tranquility of the street felt like a cruel joke. I leaned against the chapel's weathered exterior, gasping for air. My thoughts spiraled. I had to know more about Daniel, about the woman, and about this mural. I took a deep breath and checked my notebook. My next step was to revisit Daniel's story, this time with renewed urgency. I needed to find those who knew him, anyone who could give me a clue. After some time spent on my phone, I found a local cafe that Daniel frequented before his disappearance. I made my way there, adrenaline still coursing through me. The cafe was charming, a hive of activity. I approached the barista, a young woman with vibrant hair and bright eyes. "Excuse me," I said. "I'm looking for information about Daniel Klein. He used to come here a lot." Her smile faded instantly. I remember him. He was a regular, but he disappeared." Her voice trembled. I knew the sight of his name affected people. "Do you recall anything unusual about him? Anything before he vanished?" She leaned in, glancing around as if to ensure no one was listening. "He started acting strange, talking to himself sometimes. One night he painted something on the wall of the bathroom. It was unsettling, like it drove him mad. After that, he just left. No one saw him again." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. The mural at the chapel. "What did he paint?" I dared to ask. The woman hesitated, then whispered, "I don't know exactly. Just eyes everywhere, watching." It felt wrong. A chill washed over me. My own experiences at the chapel echoed in my mind. I needed to see that bathroom mural, but first, I had to gather more courage. I had come too far to back down now. I thanked the barista and left, my mind racing. I felt as if I were being watched, the shadows creeping closer. Back at the chapel, I would search the bathroom. I had to find out what links me to Daniel Klein. As I approached the chapel again, unease gripped me. My instincts urged me to turn back, but I pressed on. I reached the door and pushed it open, only to be met by an oppressive silence. It felt as if the building itself exhaled, waiting for me. And then, the whispers returned. They weren't just sounds, they formed words now. A name. Daniel. The darkness swelled, and I felt the weight of the mural behind me. I had crossed into a dangerous territory. I was determined to find the truth, but I couldn't shake the feeling I might not be the only one searching. Someone else was here. Right now. The sense of being watched returned, but this time it was sharper. I stepped further inside, my senses on high alert. Was it just the remnants of fear, or was there really another presence lingering in the shadows? I needed to find out. I moved cautiously, my eyes scanning the chapel's interior for any sign of movement, the light filtering through the stained glass painted eerie patterns on the wooden floors, but everything remained still. My breaths came shallow and fast as the whispers grew louder, rising like a chorus from the walls. Daniel. Daniel. I forced myself to focus. The bathroom. I had to reach it. The mural might hold the key. I retraced my steps, every creak of the floorboards echoing in the silent chapel. As I approached the entrance to the bathroom, I felt a chill snake down my spine. The door was slightly ajar, and as I pushed it open, the smell of damp wood and mildew hit me. The small space was dimly lit, filled with dull shadows. I hesitated, my hand lingering on the doorframe. Clenching my jaw, I stepped inside. My heart pounded as I turned to look at the walls. They were bare, but a strange sensation prickled at the back of my mind. I had expected to see the remnants of Daniel's artwork, the unsettling eyes, yet nothing remained as evidence of his madness. I glanced down, hoping to find something, a clue, a stain, anything. My eyes narrowed in on the floor. There was a damp patch, darker than the surrounding tiles. I knelt to inspect it when I heard a quiet scrape behind me. My breath caught in my throat. "Hello?" I whispered, my voice shaking. Silence. Nothing except the whispers that had grown into a near-deafening echo now. "Daniel." In that moment, I felt a presence, a weight in the air that made every hair on my body stand on end. I shot up, glancing around the small room. In the far corner, a flicker of movement caught my eye. I squinted, straining to see through the shadows. Then I saw it. A flash of pale skin, almost ghostly, just at the edge of the dim light. My heart raced. "Who's there?" I called out again, desperation climbing in my throat. But instead of responding, the figure seemed to retreat, slipping further into the darkness. I took a step forward, compelled by a mix of fear and curiosity. "Wait, please." I turned the corner of the bathroom stall, but it was empty. My heart sank. Just my imagination? Or something else lurking within these walls? I turned to leave, but suddenly the whispers intensified, surrounding me, filling every corner of the cramped space. "Daniel." I pressed my back against the wall, fighting the urge to bolt. Just then, my gaze fell on the wall opposite the stalls. A strange mark caught my attention, a faint outline, perhaps a name or a shape. I edged closer, heart hammering. It looked like something had been scratched into the paint, words barely legible. I didn't have time to decipher them, though. Just then, I heard a crunching sound from outside. Someone was coming. Instinct kicked in, and I darted back into the stall, breath held tight in my throat. The door swung open, and a man stepped inside. He looked disheveled, eyes darting. He couldn't see me, but I felt the pulse of urgency in the air. "Daniel?" he muttered to himself, sounding frantic. That's when I realized. I was no longer just following Daniel's story. I was wrapped in a mystery far deeper than I could imagine, and I had no idea what this man was searching for. I had to find out. But would I make it out in one piece? I stayed perfectly still, heart thudding in my chest. The man seemed to sense something was off. He turned slowly, scanning every inch of the bathroom with a mixture of dread and determination. I could see sweat beading on his forehead. "Where are you, Daniel?" he said again, louder this time. His voice shook with a raw edge of desperation. I felt the weight of the moment. Should I answer? Would it be safer to keep quiet? The whispers became chaotic, racing around me, urging me to act. "Daniel!" he shouted, his voice echoing against the walls. The urgency in his tone rattled my nerves. I peeked out from my hiding spot. The man had taken a step closer to the stalls. My instinct screamed at me to run, to leave this unwelcoming place, but my curiosity anchored me in place. Who was he? Why was he looking for Daniel? "Please," he murmured, almost to himself. "I just need to talk to you." Something flickered in the corner of my eye, the faint outline on the wall. I recalled the shapes I had seen scratched into the paint. A chill ran through me as the memory surfaced. They might be important, clues about Daniel or this man. My resolve nudged me forward. I had to see if I could gather more information without being seen. I slinked out from the stall, moving towards the wall where I remembered the markings. As I approached, the man turned sharply. "Who's there?" His voice cut through the air like a knife. In that split second of being caught, I froze. But then, a desperate thought pushed me to act. "Look," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not Daniel. I'm just trying to figure out what happened here." His eyes widened in surprise, and I was surprised to see a flicker of relief cross his face. "You're not him?" Thank God. I wasn't sure if I was alone in this place. He stepped back, putting some distance between us. His vigilance was still there, but now it was tinged with curiosity. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice steadying as fear began to ebb away. "Zach," he replied, glancing around the cramped bathroom as if expecting someone to jump out. "I've been searching for Daniel for weeks. He needs help. There's something wrong with him. What do you mean? I took a tentative step forward, trying to piece everything together. Zach hesitated, his expression a mix of anguish and uncertainty. He's changed. After that mural, everything spiraled. I think it's connected to this chapel. I looked back at the wall, the crude scratches now seeming like a fragment of a bigger puzzle. What mural? What do you know? The mural he painted. It showed something dark. It drew him in, and now I can't find him. I thought I lost him to this madness. His words hung heavy in the air. I had thought I was digging into Daniel's past, but now I realized I could be stepping into a far more dangerous present. Suddenly the whispers surged around us again, louder than before. I felt a wave of unease as the hairs on my arms prickled. "Daniel's here," Zach whispered, eyes darting to the door. "And I think he's looking for something. Or someone." His voice trailed off, heavy with realization, and I caught a glimpse of something shifting in the shadows behind him. My blood ran cold. We weren't alone after all. "Zach, we need to get out of here." "Now," I urged, urgency flooding my voice. But before I could grab his arm, the door slammed shut, plunging the small bathroom into oppressive darkness, and the whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar. Everything around us faded into an eerie quiet. I could barely see Zach's face, but I sensed the tension radiating from him. I fought the instinct to scream or panic. The darkness was thick, wrapping around us like a suffocating blanket. "Zach, do you have a phone?" I asked, desperate to find any light. He fumbled in his pockets. I think so." I heard the soft click of a button as he pulled it out. A faint glow illuminated his face, casting flickering shadows on the bathroom walls. Before I could feel relieved, the whispers surged again, surrounding us like an urgent chant. I held my breath, trying to catch what they were saying, but it was a jumble of frantic voices. Zach turned, his eyes wide with fear. "They're coming," he breathed. "Who?" I asked, looking around. My heart raced. The flickering light offered little comfort against the encroaching dread. "Daniel," he whispered, taking a step back. "He's not right, and whatever he's become, it wants to keep us here." I swallowed hard. "What do you know about him? About the mural?" His jaw tightened, his expression grim. "He was obsessed. He claimed he could see things in it, visions of a world beyond ours. It drew him in. And now—" He trailed off, looking toward the door. "I'm not sure he's even human anymore." A noise echoed from outside the bathroom, a low, guttural sound that sent chills down my spine. I wasn't sure if it was Daniel or something worse. "We have to find a way out," I urged, glancing at the small window. It was too high to reach easily, and the door was our only other option. "Wait," Zach said, a look of realization dawning on him. "The marks on the wall. If they're connected to the mural, maybe they can help us understand what's happening. We need to see them again." "Now?" I asked, hesitating. "They might be our only chance," he insisted, his voice growing more frantic. "If Daniel's out there—" We both turned to the wall. The dim light from the phone barely illuminated the strange scratches. I strained to decipher them, but they were chaotic, like someone had been frantically clawing at the surface. Then, something shifted outside the door again. My pulse quickened as the sound grew closer, an unmistakable hiss, layered with a low, rhythmic thrum. Zach shifted nervously beside me. "That's not Daniel," he said, terror creeping into his voice. Before I could respond, the door rattled violently. "Get down!" Zach yelled as he dropped to the floor. I followed suit, crouching beside him while the door creaked ominously, like it was about to burst open. The whispers crescendoed into a high pitch, overwhelming my thoughts. I grabbed Zach's arm, but the fear no longer felt paralyzing. "We can't stay here," I whispered, my voice shaking. "We need to find another way." As I looked back at the markings, a sudden vivid image flashed through my mind, a scene from the mural that I hadn't noticed before, a figure emerging from shadows, its face distorted. "That's when I saw it," I gasped, eyes widening. I didn't know how, but I felt that the confusion around the mural was unraveling into a horrific truth. Just then, the door burst open, and for a split second, a figure stood silhouetted in the doorway. Shadows danced around it, obscuring its features but revealing enough to chill me to the bone. I could finally see what had been hidden in the whispers, the embodiment of Daniel's obsession. "Run!" Zach shouted, pulling me back as the figure lunged forward. We scrambled across the bathroom floor, our escape now a race against whatever had come for us. I pushed myself onto my feet, adrenaline surging through me. Zach led the way, and I followed closely, our footsteps echoing in the small bathroom. The sound of shuffling and low growls from the dark corridor outside quickened my pace. I glanced back, heart hammering, only to see the figure flitting into the shadows like a phantom. "Where do we go?" I gasped, scanning the small space for any clue. "There!" Zach shouted, pointing to a vent above us. "We can crawl through there." The vent was dusty and covered in cobwebs, but it was our only option. As Zach reached up to dislodge the grate, I stole a glance over my shoulder. The shadows moved closer, and I caught a glint of something sharp. Panic coursed through me. "Faster," I urged, helping him pull down the grate. It clattered to the floor and I quickly shoved him toward the opening. Zach scrambled up, his legs kicking against the edges. I followed him, clambering into the dark void. The confined space was claustrophobic, the air thick with dust and cold. I wanted to believe we were safe, but the sounds outside grew louder. "Let's go," he urged, crawling forward. I crawled behind him, the metal beneath me scraping against my knees. It felt like we were escaping a nightmare, but I couldn't shake the terror that gripped me. Shadows danced in my mind, and the whispers from the mural seemed to echo in the corners of this cramped space. Zach paused, and I nearly rammed into him. "What's wrong?" I whispered. "Can you hear that?" he asked, his voice trembling. From the darkness ahead came a series of rhythmic hisses, almost like a chant. The sound sliced through the silence like a knife, filling me with dread. "What if it's him?" I blurted out, my thoughts racing. Zach shook his head. "There's no going back. We have to keep moving." We crawled further, the hissing growing louder until it sounded like a chorus of voices chanting a warning. "Turn back! Turn back!" I froze at the words, fear wrapping around me like a vice. It reminded me of the whispers we had heard in the bathroom, those frantic voices clamoring for attention. It felt as if the very air around us stirred with threats. Then, without warning, the vent rattled violently from behind. My heart jumped into my throat. Whatever was pursuing us was gaining ground. "Keep going. We can't let it catch us," Zach shouted, pushing ahead. The adrenaline fueled my limbs as we crawled even faster. Just as I thought we were making our escape, the vent suddenly opened into a narrow room. I tumbled out, falling heavily to the ground. Zach followed closely, but as he emerged, he screamed, "What is it?" I turned, fear pooling in my stomach. But when I saw what had startled him, a chill swept over me. The room was filled with the remnants of Daniel's obsession. A half-finished mural sprawled across the walls, each brushstroke deepening the horror that gripped this place. The figures in the mural twisted grotesquely, their faces contorted in anguish, and at the center, a gaping maw seemed to beckon us to come closer. This can't be real," I whispered, stepping back. But when I turned to Zach, his eyes were wide with recognition. "I've seen this before," he breathed. "In Daniel's dreams. We need to get out now." As we scrambled toward the door at the far end, my mind raced with confusion. I understood now that the mural wasn't just art. It was a gateway, a pulsing connection to whatever had overtaken Daniel. Just as we reached the door, it creaked open slowly. I held my breath, expecting something to leap at us. Instead, an unsettling quiet filled the air. But something stirred behind us, a familiar hissing sound. The chase wasn't over. "Move!" Zach shouted, pushing the door open. We burst through, but what awaited us in the next room was a waking nightmare. My heart sank as I realized we weren't alone. In front of us stood a tall figure, its outline blurred in the dim light. I squinted, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It resembled a person, but something about it felt wrong. Its limbs elongated, and its head tilted at an unnatural angle. A chill ran down my spine. Zach grabbed my arm tightly. "What is that?" he whispered, his voice laced with fear. "I don't know," I managed to reply, my words caught in my throat. The figure took a step forward, its movements jerky and fast. I felt like a deer in headlights, rooted to the spot as the growling morphed into a low, rumbling laughter. "Run!" Zach shouted, dragging me by the arm. I stumbled forward, adrenaline kicking in as I followed him through the open door. The room we entered was just as unsettling as the last. Stacks of canvases lined the walls, but they were all blank. It felt like a gallery waiting for something sinister to be painted. "Over there!" Zach shouted, pointing toward a small window on the far side. It was barred, but if we could reach it, maybe we could squeeze through. We dashed across the room, glancing back. The figure was in pursuit, its laughter echoing even in the echoing space. Each step I took felt heavier. Dread clung to me as if trying to slow my escape. Before we reached the window, I caught sight of something glittering on the floor amidst the sea of canvases. A brush. My heartbeat quickened, but it wasn't just any brush. Its bristles were dark and sticky, a vivid crimson that seemed to pulse under the flickering light. I forced myself to look away. "Focus!" Zach yelled, pulling me back to the task at hand. I nodded, panic flooding through me. We neared the window, my hands shaking as I pulled at the cold metal bars. They wouldn't budge. "Don't give up," Zach urged, trying to pry the bars apart. But they were rusted and resolute. The laughter behind us grew closer, deepening my sense of urgency. Suddenly, something in me snapped. I turned toward the figure, and for a moment, we locked eyes. Its gaze was hollow, devoid of any humanity. The laughter faded, replaced by a menacing whisper that echoed inside my mind. "Join us. Join us." I shook my head, desperate to dispel the sound. "What do you want?" I shouted. But the only answer was the figure continuing its slow advance, tilting its head in curiosity as if debating its next move. "Come on!" Zach yelled, a renewed roar of determination in his voice as he pushed at the bars again, this time with all his strength. The bars rattled, but I could see they wouldn't break easily. "Help me," I replied, turning back to him, eyes wide with fear. Just then the lights flickered violently, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Then everything went dark. I could hear only our breaths, heavy and frantic, as something shifted in the dark. Whatever was pursuing us was no longer visible, but I could feel it lurking, waiting for the right moment to strike. "Zach?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I'm here," he replied, sounding uncertain. "I don't think we're alone anymore." That's when I heard it, a soft scraping sound, too close for comfort, right behind us. A new layer of terror settled over me, and I felt my heart race at the thought of what was hiding in the shadows. "Run!" I screamed, spinning around to find another exit. The darkness was suffocating, but I wouldn't let fear keep me cornered. I had to find a way out. My legs propelled me forward, the echo of Zach's footsteps fading behind me. I sought any hint of light, but the oppressive darkness wrapped around me like thick fog. Panic clawed at my throat as I skidded to a halt, desperate for a way out. The chapel felt alive, shifting and breathing around me. The whispers had turned into a cacophony of disjointed voices, urging me to run. But where? "Zach!" I shouted into the void. My voice bounced off the walls, swallowed up in the abyss. I scrambled back, the need to regroup, forcing me to retrace my path. The weight of the shadows pressed against my shoulders. Something was close. I could feel it, lurking just beyond my reach. I rounded a corner and stumbled into an alcove. The walls were rough beneath my palms. A flicker of light spilled through a painted window. I pressed my face against the cold glass, trying to gauge if it was an entrance or a trap. Suddenly there was a sharp sound behind me, a low, raspy breath. I turned quickly, my heart pounding in sync with the pulse of the whispering voices that seemed to centralize around me. In the dark, a pair of glistening eyes locked onto mine, unblinking and unwavering. "Zach!" I finally managed to croak out again, but the whispering drowned my call as the figure advanced, its movements both fluid and jarring. "Help me!" The cry was not my own. It pierced through the thickness of the air like glass shattering. It was Zach. A flash of instinct surged through me. I knew I had to get back to him. The light at the window felt like a false promise, but I would have to sacrifice my own safety to save him. I dove back the way I had come, moving with reckless urgency. As I reached the hall, I finally spotted Zach crouched behind an overturned table, his face smeared with shadows that danced on the surface of his fear. "In here," he whispered urgently, and I dove down, sheltering next to him. The murmurs grew louder, vibrating through the very wood of the floor beneath us. My heart thrummed wildly as the figure passed, its predatory presence painting the air. I caught a glimpse, disfigured, agonized, maybe what Daniel had become. It was both monstrous and achingly familiar, like the distorted illustrations from the mural. "Did you see it?" Zach's voice trembled. "That, whatever that was, it's not Daniel anymore." The truth hit me with a sense of hopelessness. It's a part of whatever he released. As whispers swirled around us, I thought of the mural, the eerie beauty of it, and how it had captivated me. They had said it drew him in, and now, it seemed it wanted us both. There was no denying its hold. "We need to find a way to stop it," Zach said urgently. "What if we could destroy the mural? Maybe it has to do with the connection he made." "No," I replied, dread creeping back. "It could just as easily unleash something worse." A loud crash interrupted our conversation. Whatever haunted us was close. We had to act. I shoved my fears aside and grasped Zach's wrist, pulling him back against the wall, desperately considering our options. The echoes of helplessness filled my mind when suddenly the whispers seemed to shift, forming coherent words. "Find him. Join us." "Join us?" I echoed in disbelief, the weight of the words hanging heavy between us. Fingers of dread curled in my gut. "Is that what happened to the others?" A flash of light exploded from Zach's phone, the text illuminating his pale face. "We need to get out of here, now!" His urgency ignited the pit of my stomach. The figure reappeared down the hall, coming toward us. It let out a guttural noise, a mix of longing and despair, and for an instant, I saw Daniel etched into its features. Trapped, forever embedded in the horror he had conjured. Zach stepped forward, hesitating at the precipice of inevitability. "We can't risk being caught again," he urged. Like a reflex, I reached forward, grabbing Zach's arm. "We have to trust each other. We have to find Daniel. There's still something of him inside that creature." Zach's face switched from fear to grim determination, and I knew we had no choice. If there was even a chance the whispers were right, we had to confront whatever haunted the dark corners of this chapel. We sprinted towards the sound of the whispers, the figure trailing in our wake. I felt the very walls of the chapel close in around us, their dark secrets begging for release. The pulsating energy around us pressed heavily in the air, drawing us deeper into the abyss. Darkness enveloped us as we barreled into the chamber, the walls pulsing like the heartbeat of the earth itself. And then we were standing before it. The mural. It was alive. Its colors ebbed and flowed, and I could see figures moving within it. "This is it," I gasped. Zach nodded but was transfixed by the horror within. "We have to do something." A flicker of light burst from the surface, illuminating a vision. A glimpse of the moment Daniel fell under the mural's spell. He was there, standing within his own creation, hands outstretched, eyes filled with madness. "Daniel!" I yelled, but the words barely reached the twisted figure within. The darkness edged closer, shadows spilling from the mural like smoke. "Join us!" It hissed again, a chorus of lost souls echoing in the air. With one last surge of resolve, I moved closer to the mural, reaching out with trembling fingers. "Daniel, this isn't you." Suddenly, the ground beneath us trembled. The very fabric of the mural began to unravel, pulling everything into its chaotic swirl of color and despair. I felt the shadows clawing at my mind, whispering lies and half-truths. "Zach!" I yelled, feeling the weight of the darkness attempting to draw me in. In that moment of sheer panic, the realization hit me. What if this was all about choice? "It's not too late," I called out, pressing forward as I felt the figure's presence surge. "We can fight against it together." Zach's hand found mine, gripping tight. "Stay close." Together, we forged a path, battling against the weight of the nightmare that threatened to consume us. "Daniel, hear us," I shouted, forcing my voice to rise above the chaos. Gradually, the figure within the mural began to flicker, doubt coloring its once confident charge. I could see Daniel's face once more, a faint glimmer of recognition breaking through. "Help me," he whispered, a plea that resonated through the room. With one final push, we surged forward as the entire mural began to pulse violently, colors bleeding into one another. I felt a rush of energy surge through us as we confronted the darkness head-on. The voices screamed, the shadows writhed, and the boundary between reality and nightmare thinned. But we couldn't stop. We had to withdraw Daniel from the abyss. In that instant, I felt the undertow of despair vanish. The shadows transformed, breaking apart as the taut strings of the mural pulled free, vibrating against unsettling silence. And then, everything vanished. Light flooded my vision. I blinked, disoriented, feeling Columbus daylight return. Where once stood the chapel was now nothing but an empty lot, strewn with debris. In the distance, the townsfolk murmured, gazing on in curiosity. Zach stood beside me, just as shocked. What just happened?" Instinctively, I looked toward where the mural should have been. Its absence left a gaping void in my mind. We stopped it together," I managed to say, the relief washing over me. But even as I spoke, a knot of unease remained. In the distance, the faint echoes of whispers lingered, reminding me that while we may have escaped, some pieces of the puzzle remained unsolved. I turned to face Zach, newly aware of our tethered fate. "What now?" His expression mirrored mine, uncertainty clouding the newfound freedom we'd wrested from the darkness. "I don't know, but I have a feeling it's not really over." And as sunlight cast long shadows behind us, I knew that no matter where we went next, the truth of what had happened, and what could still lie ahead, would haunt us forever. I'll never stop wondering about the line between reality and darkness, or if truly, everything had vanished.